So 4.OA.5, this time we have a pattern, which took a very long time to write down, but I picked this one because there's a lot going on and there's just some good tips that I can go over while we're doing this. So let's start at the top. Okay, it says the first 4 terms in a shape pattern are shown below. Now, for shape patterns, it's really important that the students pay attention to the term number and what's going on in the pattern. If it's an actual number pattern out, they still want to label the terms, oftentimes because the question will either ask them about the rules or might ask them out for the 7th term. And this pattern right here, I usually like to kind of separate out and see what we got going on. So this would be my first term because it's the first in the pattern. Then this becomes my 2nd term, my 3rd term, and my 4th term. If the students do that and then they pay attention to the question, if the question says the 7th term, then all they have to do is continue and they would write 5, 6, and 7. They don't need to draw out the pattern because if they do the work by looking at what's the rule that governs the pattern, then they just continue the math and then answer the question below. So I do absolutely encourage and expect that we see the number of the term. Okay? So when I read the question, which best explains the number of shapes? So we're looking at I should say the pattern. My bad. It's explaining the pattern. So what we want to do is look through this, and you can start with this because there's a lot of text, a lot of text, or the students may not want to go down here and then just work with the pattern. Because there's a lot of text, it can be really overwhelming, so I encourage students to work up here. Then they have a toolkit that they can go through and look and dissect those answer choices. So we want to look at it a couple different ways, one for the total amount of squares that we have, but then also a pattern that governs this. Any information that we can get out of it is helpful, okay? Especially as when we continue through patterns and through different grade levels, they're going to get more complicated. So I'm just going to put a little number on the side. So I know I have 2 squares in this row, I have 3 squares in that row, so altogether I have 5, and I circle my total. So in my first term, I have a row of 2, row of 3, and 5. So right away I can see that, well, I would expect to see that it would maybe go 2, 3, 4. So then I come over to my 2nd term. So again, I see that I still have 2, I still have 3, and then I check 4. Okay? So it looks like that we're adding 1 each time. So now I have 4, excuse me, I know I have 5 from the math that I did over here, so then I just have to add 4 to the 5, and then I get 9 terms in that pattern. Okay? Or 9 squares in the pattern. All that writing is making my brain go crazy. So in my 3rd term, I see in my first row I have 2, 3, 4, and then I have 5. So what I originally noticed is continuing. So I already know this half of the pattern is 9 squares. So with the addition of 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I have 14. So looking back, I have 5, 9, 14. Coming over here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're adding 6 to that. So I know I already have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so each time we go to a new term, we're adding another row. Okay, so now let's look through this. Okay, if you skim and scan it, which I'm sure it's really hard to see because it's so big a bitty, they're structured very, very similar. So this is where I want to go, and I want to underline the pieces that make each one of these different. So A and B pretty much all start the same way. the numbers alternate between odd and even numbers. Okay, so that's the same. So we know that we're dealing with odd, even, odd, even. This one says the number of squares being added to each term increases by 1. So the numbers of squares that were added increases by 1. So looking at the pattern, I do agree with the word that's increasing because it's not a decreasing pattern. But we look to B. The number alternates between odd and even numbers because the same number of squares is added to each term. So this is where it makes it really different. We increase the number by 1, and then we have the same number of squares, and nothing up here indicates that it's same, so I can feel pretty confident right now to cross off B. Okay? So now I look down to C and D. They start very much the same, but now we have the addition of 2. Okay, so the numbers alternate between 2 odd numbers and 2 even numbers because the number of squares being added to each term increases by 1. So extremely similar to A, but the difference being in the beginning part where it's 2 odd numbers and 2 even numbers. So then we look down to D, which is probably going to look very, very similar to B. The numbers alternate between, underlined over there, I got a little excited, 2 odd numbers and 2 even numbers because there we go again, same number of squares. Just stop reading. I know that's not the truth. So, or not accurate, I should say. So now we have A and we have C. Yes. Very important part of the question I answered real quick. So now when we're looking at the rows, we know that it's 2, 3, 4. So they're not talking about these numbers here, but when I look to here, I have 5, I have 9, well, they're odd, and then I have 14 and 20 even. So looking between this, the numbers, the total numbers, alternate between odd and even, odd, even, odd, even, nope. But the numbers alternate between 2 odd, 2 odd, 2 even. So because it's the 2 odd and the 2 even, this is the one that I'm going to go with. I cross off that because it's not odd, even, 2 odd, 2 even. So patterns can seem really simple, but there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And if we don't have good habits, then if we have to continue a pattern or when we have to look at a more complicated one, especially with a lot going on down here, it's really easy to make mistakes and it's really easy for kids to get frustrated. So we try to have a nice toolkit that we can rely on when we go, okay, it's a pattern. Let's start with the terms, see what's going on. Let's give me the information and that way I can reason it up down here. Okay, I hope that helps.